Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 49, printed in Part D of House Report number 118-216, offered by Mrs. Boebert of Colorado.
Pursuant to House Resolution 723, the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Boebert, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise today to offer my amendment that utilizes the Holman Rule to reduce the salary of the department's acting chief diversity and inclusion officer, Constance Mayer, to $1. Simply put, Ms. Mayer is working in an office that should not exist, doing a job that should not exist. In addition to hundreds of ambassadors, the department already boasts a whopping 55 special envoys, representatives, and coordinators with overlapping responsibilities. Special positions, like Ms. Mayer's, often create both resentment within the department's existing bureaucracy and confusion among foreign governments as to who is actually setting policy. At the direction of Joe Biden's DEI executive order, the State Department produced and published a 19-page equity action plan, the first sentence of which proclaims, quote, addressing systematic racism is a core tenet of Biden's foreign policy, end quote. The core problem with this plan is that it does not identify a clear set of problems, and it does not prescribe specific measurable solutions. It simply cuts the American social justice template and pastes it into a plan that is supposed to inform U.S. foreign policy across the world. This office is also functionally redundant to the extent that it has a mission. The responsibilities of the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer overlap with the Office of Civil Rights, which is charged with propagating, quote, fairness, equity, and inclusion at the Department of State, end quote. This job is yet another unaccountable, ideologically motivated, politically charged senior office with vague goals and no yardsticks for measuring success. The federal government's obsession with diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to come to an end. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to remove this unnecessary position that has proven to undercut our core American values and waste more taxpayer dollars. Mr. Chair, I yield.
Gentlelady yields. For what purpose does the gentlelady from California seek recognition?
I rise in strong opposition to this amendment.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment would decrease the salary of a career public servant to $1. Why? Because this individual is the acting chief of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The mission of the office is to build and support a workforce at the State Department that reflects the people of our nation. The State Department is an essential component of our national security. The gentlelady talked about no clear set of problems that exist. Well, you know what? The clear set of problems is systemic racism. It's discrimination. It's the lack of equal opportunity within our foreign service. That's all. Conducting diplomacy that serves the interests and honors the values of the American people requires a Department of State that reflects the rich diversity of our nation. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then that's a very unfortunate and very backward perspective, given the fact that discrimination is still alive in America. It's alive and well. Our diversity, once again, is our national strength. It's a comparative advantage that we have for our engagement and leadership in a diverse world. This individual has over 30 years of State Department experience. She should not be personally demonized and targeted for her work on behalf of our nation. What she is doing is trying to ensure that we honor our pledge to live up to liberty and justice for all, and it's going to take some intentional work of the State Department to correct hundreds of years of racism. I yield. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady has the only remaining time. The gentlelady from California has the only remaining time.
I yield 2 minutes now to the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
The gentlewoman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am so proud to be an American. And I'm proud to be an American because the world watches as this experiment of so many different communities, racial and ethnic and religious groups have come together. And by and large, we have been successful by our United States military, by our educational system, by our neighborhoods, and so proud to be a Houstonian, an eclectic city with so many different wonderful, diverse communities, including the LGBTQ plus community. And so I rise today with shock and dismay because my good friend from Colorado has followed a train wreck of amendments against those of color and diversity, as well as the LGBTQ plus community. Day after day, after all of these appropriations, these poison pill riders of getting rid of the Civil Rights Office, getting rid of the Diversity and Inclusion Office is absolutely absurd. And why? Because I lived exclusion in this nation. But it didn't make me bitter. We worked, we struggled, we marched, we died. Those in the Civil Rights Movement died. Dr. King was killed because he insisted on a place that the character of your integrity would not discriminate because of the color of your skin. Some have turned that around. But what he was saying is that race exists, and it still does, in discriminating against people that are different and diverse. Why did I have honors classes and yet no college recruitment came, or I was not invited to any college recruitment in my high school? Why did I not have an acceptance in any college because of not being drawn to any college recruitment? Because of
For
the
what purpose
difference.
does the gentlelady from Colorado seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I request unanimous consent to reclaim the balance of my time.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify once again, this office of the diversity inclusion officer should not exist. This office is functionally redundant to the extent that it has a mission. The responsibilities of the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer overlap with the Office of Civil Rights, which is charged with propagating fairness, equity, and inclusion at the Department of State. This is yet another unacceptable, ideologically motivated, politically charged senior office with vague goals and no yardstick for measuring success. That is why I'm offering this amendment to reduce the salary of the department's acting Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Constance Mayer, to $1. Mr. Chair, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
No. Oh, do I have any time? Mr. Chairman, how much time do I have left?
1 minute.
1 minute? Oh, I'll yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Texas to close.
I thank you so very much.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Thank you so very much. It is not an ideological office. The gentlelady didn't hear. There's been racism, there's been discrimination, and we have not accepted the fullness of the wonderment of America. We now insult a full-time, dedicated employee. Before the Charlie Rango Fellows, we could find little individuals who are diverse in foreign service. We now have many because we reached out and made a difference. This train wreck of attacking inclusion, diversity, and equity is disgraceful, and my friends should stop it. Because our cities are better, our states are better, the nation is better because of it. And this fine public servant, I want to lift her up and say thank you. And you should cease and desist eliminating civil rights, diversity, and inclusion, because it hurts people and harms people whose very heritage is tied up to a history of racism and people who died fighting for justice and equality for all of America. so that Houston and New York and California and all the states can be a level of justice.
The gentlelady's time has expired. All time for debate has expired. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Colorado. Those in favor say aye.